The Bible says that the Lord will bless those who bless Israel, and we want to be a part of that blessing. Today, we are especially blessed to have Gregg Roman from the Jewish Federation of Pittsburgh and the Consul General of Israel to the Mid-Atlantic region, Yaron Sideman, and they're here to update us on everything that's happening in Israel and how we can continue to be a blessing. Gregg and Yaron, welcome to Real Life.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
It's an honor to be here.
This is incredible.
What an introduction. You're going to update us on everything.
Everything Israel.
Everything that's going on.
Yes.
In 5 minutes. Not a problem. Not a problem. But now your home is in Israel.
That's true.
And you come here and you visit parts of the country, and that's your assignment?
Yes, well, I head one of 9 Israeli consulates. In addition to our embassy, Israel is represented by 9 consulates across the United States. It's a very wide diplomatic representation that reflects really how valuable and important Israel's relation with the United States of America is to the State of Israel. We cherish that relationship. The United States is our #1 ally and friend, and it's reflected in our widespread representation here. So I had one of those 9 consulates, absolutely.
Well, we're so glad that you're able to be here with us on Real Life. And we feel, our Cornerstone family feels the same, a very strong allegiance and a love for Israel, and feel like Israel is our strongest ally, too.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So that is why we must link arms, and have linked arms in the past, and will continue to do so in the future, and watch how God provides and guides us down this path, winding path. Now, I know there's lots of issues, but that's an ongoing, seems like an ongoing battle, you know, with all the enemies of Israel that are positioning themselves around your nation. And Gregg has come on many times, and we've talked about that, and we've come on and some of the times it's very hot, heavy fighting. How is the atmosphere now? What's the atmosphere in Israel like now?
Well, before talking about the geopolitical challenges, let me just say, and this is, I think, what really makes Israel stand out in the region, we just celebrated our Feast of Democracy. We had elections last week, and today officially the task of coalition building has begun. None of our neighbors in the Middle East have democratic elections or have a pluralistic society that partakes civically so robustly as that of Israel's. More than 72% of participation in those elections.
Which is great.
That's amazing. It's very high numbers. Jews, Christians, Arabs, soldiers, inmates, you know, Sephardic and Ashkenazic Jews, everyone came and cast their ballot to shape the future of their state, the State of Israel. And that's very uplifting, and that's what makes us different from the region, and that's what underscores those core values of freedom and democracy that really bind us together, Israel and the United States, Israel and the West.
And Don, you talk about these threats that face Israel, but we also have to remember that these threats face America.
Yes, they do.
And this is one of the underlying principles that form the bedrock of the American-Israeli relationship. Now, I work in the American Jewish community, and that's a vibrant, robust community, and we are very proud of our relationship that we have with Cornerstone Television here in Western Pennsylvania, but also across the nation with our other affiliates.
Sure.
The value that Yaron's presence here, by being able to talk about not just the security and geopolitical aspects of that relationship, but social, religious, foundational faith. It's really a privilege to be able to be here with him for these few days that he's in Pittsburgh.
Sure, it certainly is, and we're learning. I've got to tell you that I grew up in a way that didn't really teach me about the feasts of the Lord. It was not part of my training as a young man, and you know, it just was there. But we knew Passover, but that's all we did know, and didn't know about the rest of the feast. We're approaching the Passover feast now. What's it like in Israel when you get to a high holy holiday like that? What does everything change for that period of time?
Well, practically, it's the seminal landmark holiday of the Jewish people. You know, illustrating our freedom and the value of freedom. Everyone coalesces around the Seder, the Passover table, and the uniqueness of that holiday is the storytelling and the perpetuation of the story from one generation to the next. Israelis take that, Jews all over the world take that very, very seriously, and it's an opportunity for them to get together, remind ourselves where we come from, and what are the underlying values and principles that we have to continue embracing in order to ensure not just remembering our past, but also our future.
Because they tie together.
Absolutely.
They tie together, and especially in the Passover. Now, I know, Greg, in the United States, the Jewish community celebrates the Passover much the same, I suspect very much the same as you would in Israel.
Right, but imagine an entire country for 8 days, changing all of their bakeries from baking bread to making matzah. That all of the products and all the grocery store shelves have to be removed and replaced just for 8 days with Passover products to be able to go with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And just like the entire Israel economy transforms to be able to provide for those 8 days, it's the same thing here in the United States for the Jewish community in terms of the places where we go and worship, and we go and we are able to get our food garments. But the one thing that is in common, besides just what we do in terms of the observance of the holiday, is we always remind ourselves of those people that are currently not with freedom and are not in their land and are still part of the exile. And that kind of transcends to what's going on now in today's conversation about Israel and the United States and the Middle East. And I think it's always important to connect the holiday with the actuality of
Not
what's going on
everyone's
the ground.
free,
Right.
is I guess the point.
What is the feel of the people in Israel right now? Is there victory, celebration? Is there fear? Is there stress? What does it feel like there right now?
Well, first of all, there's clear victory of the value of democracy that was illustrated in last week's elections. But yes, there is constant, we live in a region fraught with instability, hostility, and uncertainty that produces a new threat practically every day. It's something that we have to be very diligent of. It's a region that has a huge geopolitical vacuum that's being filled very quickly with radical Islamic jihadist elements. And in that respect, ISIS, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, the Al-Nusra Front, the Houthis in Yemen, they may be Shiite and Sunnite and may have infightings amongst themselves, but they're all cut from the same cloth in the sense that they all, at the end of the day, want to impose their radical jihadist beliefs and skewed and awkward value system on all of us. And that is why, that's what keeps us very much on our toes, and we have to be very mindful of.
So politically speaking, like as an American girl, what can I do to show Israel my love and support, and that I have, in a way, hooked arms?
Well, Amy, let me tell you, first of all, you already are. You put us on this show. You demonstrate your love and affection and support for Israel on a daily basis every time you turn on your cameras. And so do your millions of viewers and Christian Zionist friends and communities. And I have to tell you, the state of Israel does not take for granted its friends. And in the Christian Zionist community in the United States, we find a friend, an ally, a supporter, a brethren, really. And it's something that we value a great deal and do not take for granted. So just keep that up, please.
Are the holidays or the feasts times of special security preparations? Are those vulnerable times in Israel?
Of course they are. All those threats that we mentioned earlier, just a minute ago, are practically at Israel's doorsteps, along our borders. All those cocktails, all that cocktail of radical Islamic elements are no more than 100 or 200 feet from Israel, literally from Israel's borders, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza, all around us. And their motivation to strike a blow against us is heightened during those high holiday periods. So certainly there's a heightened security awareness as well.
And you're aware of that, and so everything tightens down a bit, I expect.
I would say, just like during biblical times, it was commanded for the Jewish people to come to Jerusalem for the 3 high holiday feasts. It's the same way now. The amount of foot traffic going into the old city, the priestly blessing at the temple wall, being able to commemorate some of the mitzvot or commandments that we have to be able to under our obligation to be able to fulfill requires a staunch security operation, but at the same time, freedom of movement, and they ensure that everyone has the right for equal access to worship, but at the same time that they feel secure.
So that heightened level of security is meant for one purpose only, to ensure that Jews, Christians, and Muslims in Israel have free access to their religious sites and can practice their religion. Israel is the only country in the entire Middle East that practices freedom or ensures and sanctifies freedom of religion to all of its citizens, Jews, Christians, and Arabs.
Well, we believe in prayer, the power of prayer, and our family believes in the power of prayer. So my last question as we end this interview is, what is a prayer that we can pray with you or in addition to you for Israel and for the current situation? What prayer would you ask for?
I think that prayer for the peace of Jerusalem, when we're asking for what we're doing in terms of the English version. But if we're talking about what we might be able to say, the Shechianu or the Tikva, the hope for Israel?
Well, you know, Israel is committed to peace. Israel wants nothing more than to live peacefully with its neighbors. And I think that's doable. And I think that's what we should pray for. I think we should also acknowledge and pray for the continuation of Israel being at the forefront of global technology. You know, one of the reasons I'm here is because the next couple of days is going to having a conference on Israel's life science technologies. 10 Israeli companies, or 11, are coming here to Pittsburgh in order to showcase and create business and partnerships and opportunities with this region. Israel is in global forefront of technology and innovation and entrepreneurship.
Well,
and we have to pray for that to happen.
Partnership, and thankful for the advancements that your country makes in all kinds of ways, and for a leader in freedom in that part of the world. Thank you for coming. I hope when you're back in town that you'll come back and visit with us again.
I'll be honored.
You'd always be welcome to be here. Thank you, Greg. You're always welcome. We'll come find you.
Okay.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Thank you.
We've got an interview with a very powerful man. Don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.